let's start with a reading that I did this last month for a woman who I knew already going into it that she has a son across the veil. And one of the first things that I asked those across the veil to tell me is, how did you pass? It's all about the evidence to show that they're here right off the bat. Then we want to get their messages. What is it they most want to communicate with us? And I know that my wonderful guide, Brenda, has pre-briefed all the spirits in advance. That's how it works. When you're into mediumship, your guide will tell them, this is how my medium works. You need to tell him this first, or you need to tell him that. And I have to tell you that Kathy, my hostess here this evening, had a reading from Brenda when Brenda was in physical form. So the web is just amazing. Anyway, this woman's son showed me right away that he had toxic substances in his system when he passed, and he shouted at me, fentanyl. I've been doing readings since 2009, and it still stuns me that those across the veil are so present, so clear, and know exactly how to get their messages across, and to shout that word to me and have come to trust that, just say it, Suzanne, because he's right here. And I said fentanyl, and the mother said, yes, that's exactly how he passed. So evidence right off the bat. And we went on and on talking about his personality, things that were likes and dislikes that he had. And then he mentioned something that his mother shook his head, and she said, no, that piece of evidence belongs with his brother in spirit. And I have found in my work, this is how spirits get my attention when I get so focused on one spirit, because I can't see them. I only feel them. And I don't realize someone else is here. They'll give me a really strong, what I call a gold nugget, a piece of evidence that matches somebody else in spirit, so that the sitter goes, no, that's not that person, but you have somebody else in spirit. In this case, the young man was saying something that I said, this feels like a brother of his. And she said, yes, but he's in spirit. So what do you do when you can't tell them apart? What I do is I say, okay, you two guys, you need to step apart energetically. So the original one who passed with the fentanyl overdose, he stayed here. And then we have a different spirit over here. And I tuned into him, was able to discern a different personality and how he passed a different way. And then we went back and forth like that. So a real stunner for me that that mom had two sons in spirit. So that step apart technique is a very good one for any of you who are wondering, how do you get that to work? So what was very interesting was the very next reading that I did was for a woman who told me right off the bat she had a fiance who passed. So I always ask my clients to welcome anybody who might come in. We don't want to just not notice other people just because I'm so focused on this person. So I said, if others come in, let's welcome them. But I went straight to partner who I normally feel standing in front of me. And he showed me that he had toxic substances in his system. And then he pulled my head over to where a child would stand. But I suddenly knew claircognizantly that this woman didn't have a child across the veil. He was telling me same way as that child you brought through the other day. It's one of those things where the human side just can't believe this. And I said, your fiance is telling me he passed from fentanyl. And she said, yes, he did. So look at that, how, oh, Brenda's taking credit for that. See, Brenda coordinates the readings. She saw the one spirit one day, then the very next reading, she has another one. And all she needs to do is say, look, Suzanne did a reading, the last one, passed the same way you did. This is how we're going to get it through to her. Do you see the coordination happening across the veil? I find it fascinating. And once again, this is just showing the creativity and the intelligence, of course, of those across the veil. It was really gratifying that this young man, her fiance, who had been gone about 8 years, got through so many pieces of evidence about what he was like and who's still here, and messages that were meaningful to her, that at the end, her comment was, she said, that was amazing. I'm shocked, really. And isn't that what we want? We want to have our socks blown off in a reading. And as mediums, we want our sitters to be stunned, to say, you know, I kind of hoped that there's an afterlife. I hoped I'd hear from my loved ones, but to be wowed by the evidence is the goal of evidential mediumship. So I was very grateful for that. Now, let's see. Okay, I'm asking the spirit where we go next with this. I had a woman come in as a client about a week after those last ones, and in comes a partner right away. I didn't know who this woman had across the veil, but it was a male, her generation, and he walked in holding a ring, a diamond ring by the end of the ring, like showing it to me on the side. I said, this is a partner, because he's talking about your diamond ring that he gave you. She said, oh, that's who I wanted to hear from. But what was really interesting was later on in the reading, he showed me that again, and he said, nice setting. I said, this is like a 2-carat rock, a big diamond, but he's really talking about that setting. And she holds up her right hand, which I hadn't seen, and she said, I had to get my engagement ring that he gave me years ago reset because it didn't fit, and I had it completely redone. And that shows us that he knew what she'd had done. I love when they talk about current events. In fact, this morning's reading, my sitter's parents are talking on and on about their lives when they were here, and all of a sudden the father went, cereal for breakfast, and pointed at my client just out of the blue. I know this woman, I know my client, and I know that she's very health conscious, and I just could not picture her eating cereal for breakfast. But what do we learn to do? Say everything, especially when it's not what you expect. And I said it, and she looked surprised, and she said, I did. I had cereal for breakfast. So you see, Mom and Dad were hanging out early, getting ready for that reading. Isn't that cool? All righty. So back to the woman with the diamond ring. Her husband came in carrying a briefcase. For those of you who are into mediumship, and I know not everybody in these webinars are, we get certain symbols. For me, when a man shows me a briefcase, that means he was a businessman. And then when they show me their name up on a board, I know they had their own business and it had their name in it. Well, this man literally had this briefcase that the woman still has, kind of like on an altar for him. She sent me a picture of it. So that was very cool. He told me that he did have his own business, and he said that they were such good partners that she could have run the corporation herself, but she ran the house like a corporation. Absolutely valid for her. Then this was really cool. He showed me a Remington statue. If you're not familiar with Remington statues, this one in particular, he showed me a horse standing up on 2 legs. My left brain tried to kick in and said, were all Remington statues horses standing up? Because it was so clear, and I know that I have seen some of those like that. Well, she sent me a picture of exactly that statue in their home, the horse up on 2 legs. And then he made some comment about horses, and it was because they raised horses. So the connections lately have been profoundly clear for me. And I want to give all of you hope that when I say it just keeps getting better, it really, really does. And part of the reason I know I'm enjoying such clarity lately is because of that I've been working on feeling all my feelings. And that's going to be a big part of tonight's topic. So I just want to show you that this is why we focus so much on self-improvement, self-transformation, raising our own consciousness, because the more we do that, the more clear of a vessel we are for spirit. And that's the goal always. Whether or not you want to be a professional medium, the more clear your vessel is and the life force can flow unobstructed through you, then you'll be able to communicate with your own loved ones more easily as well. Let's see. The same husband across the veil showed me that this woman loved using oracle cards. Again, the human side says, well, she doesn't look like somebody who would use cards. She sent me a photo of exactly this pile of cards that she had just used. In fact, I hope you're taking note how even in the midst of readings, even when I trust spirit, I'm aware of how the left brain is constantly coming in and trying to judge things. So if your brain does that, one way to deal with that is to tell your left brain, it's okay. You can take a time out while I'm doing the reading, but it may still come in and try to analyze. Just be aware of it and learn to not pay attention to it. Okay? Very important, because early on for baby mediums, we listen to that left brain rather than to the spirits. We don't trust ourselves, and we miss a lot of really beautiful moments with spirit that they're trying to get through to their loved ones. One of my favorite moments in that reading with the woman's husband was, I said, he's showing me a lawn tractor. And I know he didn't ride this lawn tractor, but it's in your yard and it's a joke. Now you see how all these little pieces fit together, but I couldn't get exactly what it was. And she started laughing, and I repeated what I just said to all of you. She sent me a photo of it. It's a toy lawn tractor that sits in the garden as an ornament. And it was a joke because he always wanted a tractor, but he wasn't the kind of guy to ride on a tractor. So isn't that perfect? What's fascinating to me is that the claircognizance was there from what he was sending me telepathically, that I just knew he actually didn't write on it. So this is what we get. This is the goal. What we're going for is that they don't have to say everything, that you just know, because it's all part of the big picture of what they're sending to you. All right. That reading, when I talk about things just keep getting better, he was so specific. He showed me that they had 3 children, and those 3 children were 2 sons and 1 daughter. Yes. They had 5 grandchildren. Yes. And 3 dogs. Oh, my left brain just kept wanting to say, this can't be that accurate. And it was. So again, I'm not saying this. It's not about bragging. It's about, this is the progression of when you trust spirit. That their whole story, every spirit who comes to you is in their field. They're sending the information to a medium. When we can get the left brain out of the way, it's right there. And what's the goal? To let the loved ones know they are right here. I just finished a 10-week class with the Shift Network, in which we talked quite a bit about double meanings. And that's where the spirit world can say one phrase, but it holds at least 2 and often more meanings. It's like economy of transmission of information. And in this case, the man told me he did a scan of his wife, and he says, your health is good. All systems go. And he went like this to me. When they wave 2 fingers, that means what I just said is a double meaning. All systems go. So you tune into the stomach, the solar plexus, the gut, and your heart to figure out what that double meaning is. So I said to her, I know that means all systems go means your health really is good. You don't have to worry about any health challenges. But the other one is, now he's showing me Cape Canaveral and NASA. I know he had a NASA connection, where in NASA they would say all systems go before a rocket launches. And she laughed and she said, can I tell you? And I said, yes, please. You know, there's a point where you don't limit what your sitter says, so you can celebrate these beautiful moments in a reading. And it turns out that part of the personality that he showed me was that he was a very fair man, a very honest man, a man of honor. She said, that's him to a T. And he had taken a job in insurance. He ultimately went on to own his own insurance company, but he had been given a job in insurance when he was young, but his dream was to work at NASA. And right after he took the insurance job, NASA offered him a job, but he was so honorable, he wasn't going to quit after having just started that. So he never did go the NASA route. But isn't that a clever way to get that through, by saying all systems go, and that's a double meaning? I absolutely love that. So those were the highlights of that reading. But I hope you can see that when I bring up the evidence and the stories, there are so many lessons inherent in each one that I hope will help all of you know what's possible when you connect across the veil.